All right guys, just making a quick video while I'm going for a walk. I just want to talk about the Bali property market. So some of you may know I've lived in Bali for the last 2 years, just moved back to Australia. Before that, I was in Bali for about a year and heavily looking at property, specifically short-term property. Had a planned build, but that fell through with the separation. But it's really interesting space. There's a lot of property development going on, especially around areas like Canggu, Pererenan, Uluwatu. You've probably seen it popping up all over social media. These places are possible, especially in Uluwatu and like Bingin and things like this. I guess like what's my exposure in the market over there right now? Well, I've just started a property management company in Bali. So the goal is to do what I did in Australia, but in Bali. And so at the moment, currently doing a couple of arbitrage properties. So the types of deals that we do are, we lease the property from an owner, and then we rent it on daily rental. So we make money from the difference between the long-term rental and gotta watch out for the car. Long-term rental and renting out daily. So the average daily rate, say, is $300 a night, $350 per night Australian. We might pay upfront for the lease. The way that it works in Bali is that you pay all your rent upfront. I know it's kind of wild, but you pay all your rent upfront. So let's say you found a villa, $40,000 a year. You'd pay your full $40,000 a year. Generally, if you take a longer lease, like a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, etc., the price goes down. So you might, instead of $40,000, you might pay $35,000 a year, and then that would be $70,000 that you'd pay up front. Or you might negotiate terms, but generally they want the money up front because their thing is that they're building the villa and they'll give it to you cheaper because they could do daily rental, but they'll give it to you cheaper, but they want the money from that build so they can roll it into the next build. So we come along, lease this thing for 2 years, and then we might project that we're going to get $60,000, $70,000 out of it. Now that's gross. You're not going to take that. There'll be some fees that will come out from Airbnb or the platform, probably 10 to 15%. Then there's a few different taxes that you have to be aware of. So there's a tax on the gross amount for the lease. So let's just run some numbers real quick. Let's say you spend $70,000 on the lease. That means that you're going to pay 10% tax on that lease, so it's $77,000. Then for every night that you book out, you pay 10% tax on each of those nights, and you pay that at the end of each month. And then you're going to pay a fee to Airbnb. So you're going to lose a bit there. But if you negotiate a good lease term, it still works. The arbitrage still works. You can make 20 to 25% after all those amounts, and even more depending on how you style the lease or how you style the properties, how you market it, how you do photography. It can be very very lucrative. So that's what we're kind of currently doing in the market over there. We've got 3 different properties that we're doing arbitrage on at the moment. They're performing quite well. The other thing that you can do is so in Bali you can lease the properties for, it's generally a lease, so 25 to 30 years. There's not many people that sink the cash into actually buying the property, and I forget the name of what it's called. Anyway, so I forget the name of what it's called, but there's one where you buy the land and actually buy the property, the traditional way that you would say in Australia. And then there's also the leasing option. A lot of people lease because it's far cheaper. If you're buying it, it's going to be 3 times the price. So if you're going to spend $400,000 on a property, you might end up spending like $1 million Australian. So whereas you could lease it, and there's not many people, like everyone's take is a bit different, but essentially like the payback period on on the Bali property is generally around about 5 years or 6 years. So it's around about a 20% return. Now, you have to be a little bit skeptical of this because sometimes these are the gross numbers. Like, you know, you might say, oh, well, okay, I spent $250,000 on this property and it's making 50 grand a year, so that's paid back in 5 years, right? No, not always. Because you've got your operating costs. And like I said, you've got the taxes and the other bits and pieces as well. So yeah, these are things to consider as well. Not saying it's not there's not good deals out there, but not every deal is a good deal. It looks good on the surface, but you got to understand you've got operational expenses out of it. So generally your operational expenses for running the villa, and that's like cleaning, internet, linen, electric, this type of stuff, you're looking at around about 10% operating expenses. And so you factor that in, you factor the taxes, you factor the other bits and pieces. So your net return, yeah, could be 12 to 15% once you start factoring all those things in. So Bali's a really interesting market. It's extremely saturated. It's extremely popular. It's growing. There's lots and lots of tourists, but it's very reliant on the tourist market. So it's actually one of the fears that I have about working in Bali is, you know, the geopolitical risk. If there was something to happen, like, you know, like another COVID or something like that, it's tricky. Another risk is the foreign exchange risk. So, you know, you might make your 20 or 30% return on investment in Bali, but then when you come to take that money back, the exchange rate from AUD to ADR could easily fluctuate 10 or 15%. Could easily. I know this because I'm in that situation right now. I've got some money in Bali, you know, I want to bring some back to Australia, and you know, it's I'm talking like, okay, I'm going to lose 10% off of my capital. Not to say that that's a forever thing, but if I did it today, I would lose 10%. But you know, you wait a few months, you know, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever. The rate could be different. You could make 10%. So there's that foreign exchange risk that's there. So it's definitely not negligible. It's not something you should ignore. But it's something to be aware of. You've got to stack the numbers, do the numbers, and make sure it works out. Now, as far as building versus buying, you're definitely going to make more money from building it. It comes with an elongated build time and cash flow. Like, you're paying it in installments, you're paying it in stages. Builds will can take 18 months. The thing about Bali as well is you've got wet seasons and dry seasons, so your construction gets slowed down a lot through the wet season, and that's where it sort of pushes your build time out. I think build time in Australia, someone may be able to answer this, you might be talking like 7 or 8 months maybe. In Bali, it's pretty standard to do 14 to 18 months for a build time. So, but in saying that, you do end up with a cheaper setup. With the opportunity cost of, that capital that you're putting in, that you're investing, you're not receiving a return on that investment until obviously you can rent it out. So definitely two things to kind of look at. Generally, you pay in stages, so same as Australia. One of the other important things about Bali is it's cash. So if you're putting down $500,000 for a property, or whatever it might be, you've got to have $500,000 cash. There's no The mortgages are reserved for kind of the locals, and they are, as far as I know, I've not looked into it too much, but as far as I know, it needs to be a freehold piece of land, so they've got security. It can't be a lease, and there's certain visa requirements and stuff that go along with it. So yeah, that's my bit of information about Bali. If you want to hear more information, or if you've got any questions, let me know. Let me know if you've seen different information, or what your experience, if you've built in Bali, or you're doing rental arbitrage or anything like that. Let me know what you're up to, or let me know what your experience is. So that's it for the video. Cheers guys, like and subscribe. See you next one.